I can confirm on the basis of speaking to very senior government sources that there were no shots fired. Stones, batons were used in the fight, in the physical skirmish between Indian and Chinese forces. There are significant Chinese casualties at this stage, but yes, we have lost 3 of our own. One of the officers who has been killed in action is a colonel of the Indian Army. I can now share that detail, that a colonel of the Indian Army has been killed in action. There are at the moment major general level talks taking place in a place called PP14, that's Patrolling Point 14. That's not very far from where these Google Earth images are taking place in the Galwan area. Also, these major general level talks are very important in trying to resolve the present situation, because there was a very active process, as you know, Ankita, of a de-escalation drive by both sides taking place. So stones, batons were used in this physical skirmish between Indian and Chinese soldiers, in which casualties were inflicted on both sides. A significant number of Chinese soldiers, we are told, have been killed, and we have lost 3 of our men killed in action, one of whom was an officer of the rank of colonel, in other words, a commanding officer. This is detail that our senior government sources are now sharing with us, and which we can go ahead and report. Now, the situation is still tense, in the sense that the tension has been on for a while now, but the immediate situation on the ground in those areas is still tense until such time as the major generals who are talking to each other figure out the situation on the ground. They are trying to do that right now, which is why, beyond a certain extent, the army over here, the headquarters, just don't know what's going to happen until our Major General reports back and says, look, here is what the situation is, and thereafter they would obviously decide and see what the assess what to do next. The Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has been meeting the National Security Advisor, would be abreast of all developments. The Army Chief very closely monitoring the situation as well. It is very important to stress that after the incursion by the Chinese in all areas of the line of control, in several areas of the line of control in Ladakh took place, 4 to 5 areas, India shored up our defences massively, and therefore the on-ground position as far as the Indian Army is concerned is very significant, and therefore any attempt by the Chinese at getting violent, as they did on the Pangong Lake, where our soldiers were detained and brutally assaulted earlier on, will now be met with a serious response, and that is what has taken place now. Now, there has been a response from the Chinese as well. They have accused India and the Indian Army of going across the area which they say is the boundary which they claim, and on their side, on 2 occasions on Monday night, getting into a situation with Chinese soldiers. And again, the Chinese also, this is important, in a sense, matching what what the army said on record now, is that there were no shots fired. However, there were physical skirmishes which took place. It's almost bizarre, this pattern of escalation, because there is an escalation matrix which takes place with Pakistan. There's an escalation matrix which takes place with China. With Pakistan, very often we go to light machine guns, to heavy machine guns, to mortars, to artillery. With the Chinese on the line of actual control, it usually goes from banner patrols, where both sides come, face off against each other, show each other banners saying you're on our territory, and then both sides go away, to pushing around, to violent sort of engagements, which we've seen on the Pangong Lake in recent times, where several of our soldiers were injured, to actual fatalities on both sides as a result of physical skirmishes. However, it's not escalated, say, both sides, to actual shots being fired. So the escalation matrix is unique over here. While both sides are extremely heavily armed on both sides of the line of actual control. What do I mean by that? I mean tanks, because despite the mountainous terrain, both sides have actually employed tanks in that area for their defenses. Artillery guns, one of the primary weapons which would be used, heavily deployed on both sides as well. And obviously the infantry soldier. As the alert level goes up, the Air Force would be engaged as well to carry out patrols if necessary, to keep an eye on Chinese air activity on their side. So there is a system of alert which encompasses, in this case, the Air Force as well as it does the Army, and obviously the alert level on the ground exists at various levels. So for the moment, what we can say is that these major general level talks taking place is meant to sort out the immediate situation. And once that is resolved, assuming that it is resolved, we can think about whether there would be a full-fledged resumption of the process of disengagement which was taking place apparently successfully over the last several weeks. But it's important, the Indian Army has retaliated. We have inflicted casualties on the Chinese side, but yes, we can now report that a colonel of the Indian Army along with 2 Jawans were killed by the Chinese soldiers.